but you were talking about like an instance where
came apart. Came undone. And for me, but that's where it lives the most. Imposter syndrome lives the most in music for me.
Welcome to another episode of Therapy Bros. I'm John,
sir.
With my boy Q.
Yes, sir. Back in the house. Glad to be back.
We got to get like a different intro for that, man. Yeah. I was like, I don't even know what to say. I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm kind of springing on you this time around.
Right.
Because one, it has been a minute since we recorded, but I think it's also fitting. You know, for me, I'm just coming from work, which is why I'm dressed up. On my way here, it really reminded me of something I spent a lot of time in therapy on at the beginning of my career, which was imposter syndrome.
Okay. Yeah.
So like even before I jump into like my story, and I'm pretty sure you have some instances that you want to get to as well. How would you define imposter syndrome?
That's what I was going to say. I guess we need to define it first. I'm gonna since it's your episode, I'm gonna toss this one back to you to let you get yours off first.
Man, I always attribute it to like feeling like you don't belong in the room that you're in. Like I don't know how else to really put it.
Yeah, it's really tough because it's like you had to do something to get into the room. Like, so you got into the room, and that's the goal, to get into the room. But then you get in there, you don't feel. I guess sometimes like you can be your authentic self, or maybe it's a matter of sometimes words. For me, I think it's tough to kind of figure out why I'm feeling that way too. So it's always like, what's making me feel that way? Like, did I prep right? Did I, am I going off the top of the dome? Do I remember right? Am I nervous? What stakes are at? How high the stakes are.
And I think that's where it really came down to it for me, was like feeling that you're going to get exposed.
Yeah.
And it would lead me to doing a lot of over preparation. I started teaching, I'm trying to think how old I was when I first started. 25.
Okay.
25, 26. And I'm right out of my master's program, got hired right in at WIU to teach economics. And at that time, I'm, once again, 25, 26, I got students in my class that are 1 or 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Because some students might take that stuff late. And I remember feeling like, what am I doing? I was excited. So it was like, I had the credentials. I had did like a teaching practicum, one semester. So I was like, I know I'm prepared for it. But it just didn't, I feel like there was so much anxiety and nervousness around actually stepping into the classroom, because I was like, man, there's going to be that one student that's going to raise their hand and ask that question that I'm not going to have the answer to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be sitting there looking dumb in the face. Right. So that was always like one of my biggest fears. So like my wife, she could attest to it. Like I remember that first semester before every class, like the night before, I'm prepping like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking 4 or 5 different questions that students could ask that they never asked. That's the crazy part. It's like you prepping for something that most likely isn't going to come. And also like in those spaces, I remember like, man, this is probably big, like my first year of my career. And like I said, I was in therapy at that time at WIU because they offered it for free.
Okay.
So I was still going to therapy. And like, I remember my therapist kind of telling me, like, one, you're in the room for a reason, right? And like I was placing these unnecessary burdens on myself, like even around my colleagues. I was like, I felt like I didn't have a voice. Like I can't say anything because I'm the new guy in the room.
Right, yeah.
But like none of them made me feel that way.
Yeah.
Like they was like the most supportive.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm putting stuff on other people that they're doing the exact opposite of. They're like, hey, how can we help? Like, what can we do? Like, we want to hear from you, X, Y, and Z. And like, shout out to the WIU econ department, man. They were like the most supportive individuals that I had. Like I couldn't have asked for a better start. But it was so much things that I was kind of putting on myself that I don't know why.
Yeah. So did you experience any of those students like asking that sort of thing, or never really hit that, huh?
Never did, man. Like the first couple of years, and I remember like there was always gonna be like some nervousness because like the first week is always gonna be like filling them out.
Right.
But then like you kind of in the groove, they kind of pick up on your personality. So I need like 1 or 2 lectures in, I know what the semester is gonna look like. But back then, like you just don't know. There's like a lot of unknowns. So like one of the ways, and it's crazy, like one of the ways that I kind of, and it actually set the stage for how I am today, is like I would dress up a lot, right, to try to take the energy off of like what I'm saying to like, oh, what he's wearing, you know. So that was one of my defense mechanisms. Is like I used to do like the flashy little bow ties, all that type of stuff, and like I would stand out because I wanted to feel like I belonged there. So sometimes they talk about like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, look the part. Yep, for sure. Yeah, and I've definitely found that has been the way that I try to fit in as well. Like looking the part, making sure that you're sharp and presentable.
Yeah,
because I feel like that is a part of people taking you serious. Because like you take your look seriously, then people are saying, okay, like you said, at least he looked together. I'm gonna listen. At least give him a chance because it's like you want that chance. And I feel like I've definitely used that for sure as a defense mechanism, and it's worked for me.
It does.
I'm gonna say it's one of this kind of tried and true. Like as far as like things that work. As far as defense mechanisms, I always say they're not all bad. Like they especially when they work. Yeah. Like I've definitely used. It's gotten me out of some. I always tell the stories of it's gotten me out of some court cases. Like I've showed up for court in a suit and tie, and I've had a judge be like, just the fact that you came, really dressed, prepared, like you taking the situation seriously. I've gotten them to not necessarily throw it out, but I've been on what was it called back then? I can't think of what it was called, but they gave me another chance basically as opposed to revoking my license.
Well, I see this like it kind of reminds me of back in high school where for y'all on the basketball team, y'all used to always have to dress up for
away games. Yeah.
And then I remember y'all walking through the hallways on this.
Yeah, I was just telling my wife about that, how we like. So imposter syndrome, like the opposite of that is like, so sometimes I have imposter syndrome when I'm going into a place alone. But like the thing that we found really quick, like if you got a squad, like if you go in there with one or two people, like a squad of us where we all decide to dress up and we turn Thursdays into the day. And I was telling her like, it started as like us in them crazy suits. And at the time I got 4 or 5, 6 buttons. It's a big logs, it's a crazy suit. It looked crazy in retrospect in the pictures or whatever. But like at the time, so it starts with all the athletes. Then there's some of the hood guys. Like I remember that like all the hood dudes like, well, what y'all doing? They ask at first, and then before you know it, like they weren't wearing suits, but like everybody had khakis on.
What was it? It was like a certain day back
Thursdays. We turned into Thursdays. Everybody dressed up on Thursdays. So like it was even non-athletes that like wore khakis as opposed to jeans or shorts or whatever on that day. And it's like the crazy part about imposter syndrome is that like when you just show up as authentically you, a lot of times people are drawn to that. So like the thing you're trying to hide is also why you're in the room. Like so you're trying to not get exposed, but a lot of times you're in that room for something that makes you different. And it's like, getting comfortable with that is important. Because a lot of times everybody's uncomfortable. Yeah. That's kind of one of the other things that kind of dispels that too, is that like, you're not the only person in the room that feel like they don't fit. It might be the person that's giving, if you're in a room where they're giving like a speech or something, it could be the person giving the speech who feels the least, qualified in the room, where everybody else in the room came to hear that person. Exactly. And even they feel unqualified at times. So it's one of the things that like everybody dealing with it at some aspect.
One of the things that I kind of like picked up, and this has always been like my lecturing style since day one, is I never take myself too serious, like in the classroom. So I'm going to talk about like a lot of my shortcomings. And I know this is something that you talked about like in the public speaking space that you've been in lately too. And it's like when you're, what's the 8 Mile movie, right? The B Rabbit at the very end. So before they can say all those things about him, he's going to say it about himself. Yeah. So once again, kind of like doing something like that tends to strip things down as well. So I found like that was something that's kind of helped in that sense. But I remember like not until probably like more recently in therapy really getting to like the root of some of those things. I think back when I first started, it was all about managing it. That's why I think like with therapy, you got to like really stick with it because some of the things that you're facing in year one are going to be built upon back in like maybe like year 5 or 6. And you can really start digging a little bit deeper. But first you got to get to a position of stability before you can start digging.
Yeah, it's one of them where like it's probably the difference in like having an old house and trying to fix it up and knocking that boy down and restart. Because sometimes you can go in and like if a house got what we call good bones, you could just kind of tear some stuff out and move some stuff around. But sometimes you come in there and it's structurally not sound. Like you got to knock it down first, and you got to deal with all that, and you got to let the ground resettle and all that other stuff. So it's like you said, that comes in parts. So it's one of them. where therapy is kind of in stages sometimes. Where, like you addressing as much as you can at the time, because it's also, you know, if it's some trauma behind it or something, you got to go at a pace that allows you to not get lost in that, because you can get lost in imposter syndrome too, because you're trying to find an identity and you just not feeling, you know, necessarily settled probably in that, and you can get in some of them rooms and lose yourself. Yeah. And I definitely have experienced that too, where I'm like, if I don't go in there like set with who and comfortable with who I am in that space, you tend to just, you know, you get drawn into, okay, well, this is how the space operates. So one of them kind of, when you in Rome, do what the Romans do. Yeah. And it's always kind of that, there always is going to be some of being pliable to the situation. So being a part of whatever is happening in the room, because you are in a room to, if you're in there to participate or if you're in there to contribute, then you do have to be within the confines of what's going on in the room. But like, you should still be you in that. And I feel like that's definitely, especially in professional spaces, that's a journey.
Well, see, there was something I wanted to talk about, because you had brought this up. We had talked about it maybe like a month or two ago. Okay. And to me, it was like the most baffling thing, right? Because you're talking about playing, you know, for those of you out there who don't know, Quinn's one of the best organist musicians that I know personally.
Man, appreciate that.
So like, in my head, you're at the top of the top, right? Yeah. You know, you're a local legend as well, like in those spaces. But you were talking about like an instance where,
bro, came apart. Came a dud. And for me, but that's where it lives the most. Imposter syndrome lives the most in music for me. And it's something I've done my entire life. And for me, it was getting to the root of that. I was like, so for me, it was knowing that I never had a practice regimen. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't practicing. So music is something that naturally comes to me, but I just could not find ways to practice. And like now in my adult ages, I'm finding out, you know, that was me having struggles with tools and stuff that, you know, I used to have blocks as far as, you know, doing certain tasks because I just didn't know what I was doing or whatever, just not feeling like I could be successful in it. And then not having the resources as well and not knowing how to speak up. So it was, again, you talk about managing not being exposed. It's like, okay, I was using my memory. You good at memory, so I remember a lot of stuff, but you get anxious and nervous, and that's out the window, man. So it just was, that was always the game. How much of it can I remember? And then like remembering and then regurgitating it or performing is like where it definitely used to come. When the anxiety is high, the memory is low. So the mistakes come and then they compound because you like, man, everybody is hearing this. And it's one of them like, the general public don't really necessarily always know what's going on. Some of them do because some people love music like that. But it's your peers that you're always worried about. Like, they know. When we hit sour notes, we all know. Yeah. So, like, it's the guys that I'm in the band with, and then the guys sitting in the crowd. You don't know who is in any given crowd. And then now we have the internet. So everything lives. And so it was definitely a journey of, like, feeling like I belonged in that space, learning to prep more, and then learning that, like, everybody is imperfect in that space. Like, the people that even are on tour, the highest level professionals, all of them make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And it just is a part of the game. And it's never fun. Yeah. It never gets more fun. You never want to get on the stage and if something goes wrong, like especially if you play in solo or in a band, it's just always, there's never a good time to make mistakes when it comes to music.
And I think like when we were having that conversation and I'm just sitting there flabbergasted because like how can you feel like you don't belong, but then it does kind of speak to like the whole internal nature of a lot of these things that we do kind of place on ourselves. You just never know what someone else is dealing with. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that therapy helped me at least to kind of see like, man, like you hear it all the time, like everybody's dealing with something. But like when you actually start deep diving into some of your own things, like it helps you to have a different level of appreciation for the other struggles that people are going through. Yeah. And like I said, it just made no sense to me at that time. Like, man, how could you view yourself that way? But man, that's just the human experience.
Yeah, and I think that describes it. And I was working on I'm doing a speaking engagement coming up in what just got moved to March, and I was talking about having the knowledge of something and then still having to mitigate the experience of it. So like I always use the analogy, the simplest one I use is like stubbing your toe. We all know if you stub your toe, it's gonna hurt. Yeah. So I know that going into it. So if I hit my toe, I know that if I hit my toe, it's gonna hurt. But when I hit my toe, it still hurts. So I still react. So it's like that is the human experience. Like I can know that that's my blind spot. And then I don't see it coming because it's my blind spot. So when it happened, I'm like, at some point, I'm like, how did we get here again? But that's because it's in my blind spot. Yeah. I do still have to experience it. And that's where, like, I think, too, and this might be, I guess, where some people have reservations about therapy is because therapy is not going to resolve the problems or make the problems not happen. The problems are coming.
Right.
You're human. Like, the things that are going to happen to you are going to happen to you. Your tests are, some of them are going to be the same. They're just going to, hit different levels. But it's one of them, like, it gives you the tools to deal with it. And so it's like, in some seasons, you're going to have to use the tool way more. There's some times where every day I'm finding myself in certain situations that I'm trying to avoid or, like, getting agitated or just trying to stay calm or trying to stay level-headed, and then you find yourself getting pulled away from that because whatever that situation is triggering enough to still get a response out of you, but it is using that toolkit that is not going away, but I do know how to, handle it. And I think that's some people are like, well, that's a waste of time. But it's like, look, you're going to have to deal with it. I would rather have the tool than not have it.
And that's actually a really good segue because I mentioned to you, it's like I want to introduce a whole segment called Q's Toolkits because I feel like on every episode you bring up a different tool or you reference that toolkit. So I guess specifically with dealing with identity, imposter syndrome, like what would be a tool that has helped you in the past? And I'll toss out one myself too.
I think for me is like, it's surviving the past failure. So it's my memory. So it is the memory of like, this moment always sucks. You're always gonna sometimes super be prepared, sometimes not be prepared at all. The experience is gonna be what it's gonna be. And whatever you bring to the table today, if you already done made it to the table, you only got what you got. So whatever you came to the table with is what you got today. So it's like, you got to survive today. And then like, hopefully you come back to the table with something better. You have a better day. And so I think it is just that acceptance of like this failure, if it's going to be a failure, will not bear you. Like no one failure or no one success. Facts. Like no, who did I see just saying, it was a bunch of celebrities together and they was kind of having a talk like similar to this. And they were saying, like, no matter what happens, as long as time moves on, time moves on. So if you had a huge success, tomorrow you still got to go back to it. Yeah. If you had a huge failure, tomorrow is still there. Like if you won the championship or if you lost a championship, if you got blown out 1 by 1, lost by 1, whatever happened. Like even with stuff like just more traumatic, like if you're still alive, it's still a chance. So if somebody else passed that was close to you, yes, that's gonna hurt. Yes, that's gonna make you feel away. But like if you're still alive, you got to still keep moving. You lost a job, you lost a career, lost a loved one, or like a relationship, like whatever it is. If you still here, you got to keep moving. So it's like knowing that this is a part of the journey and you can't park here unless you're done. Like, and who wants to be done? Like, you might be tired, so rest for sure, but like, it's knowing that like you gotta keep moving and this is a part of that. Like that failure is in the story.
With the Super Bowl week just passing, they've been airing a lot of the old games. So a lot of Patriots stuff because it was always in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But they were showing this conversation with Bill Belichick, the coach at the time, and they had just had like a really bad game or whatever. And he was just like, on to the next one. It's like, that's the mentality that you always have to have. Tom Brady was talking about like as a quarterback, man, if I just threw 2 picks, I'm not going to be extra cautious now just because I've had those 2 picks or those perceived failures. He was like, I got to keep that same mindset because when you start focusing too much on the past, that's when those mistakes, really start creeping in.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a good thing, just to kind of have that right mentality all the way through. For me, when it comes to dealing with like the imposter syndrome or even just kind of like identity as a whole, the one tool that I would toss in that toolkit would be just give yourself permission to learn. I think early on, as I was mentioning, I felt like I needed to know everything. But I think some of the most important growth that you have in your life is when you recognize that you don't know everything,
right, for sure,
but you're willing to learn. And I think just being pliable is what's going to help you to just kind of, reach your potential most of the times too, because they have like this one book called Carol Diswick, I think of her name, like mindset, like the growth mindset versus like a stagnant mindset or whatever. So just having like that ability to learn and be a sponge and just not be fixed at like, okay, this is what it is. And like you're going to keep growing as an individual. Like I think for you, I know you are doing a lot more of like that public speaking and getting in that space now. And were you always really comfortable with it early on?
No, okay. not at all. It's really weird because I like was able to stay away from it for a long time by doing other stuff. You just work and work and work, find other places to work where they don't put you on, on stage or whatever. And church is the first place where that kind of happened. In school, I write well. So, I'm good with words. I used to write poetry and stuff like that. So, but when it came to speaking, it was kind of odd because I was nervous. But then I would get up to speak, and it's one of the most comfortable places I've ever been, and that was really odd.
Once you're up, like it feels like the nerves are always going to be there building up. But once you're there, I can't walk off the stage, right? So
I'm here, and then like for me, so the thing that I had to deal with the most, I think, is like making sure that, and this happens all the time. You always revisit, like, oh, I should have said. So trying to get out a clear message, and that for me that became prepping because I normally memorize stuff. But like when I start, the more time I put into prepping, the more versions I go through where I'm clipping away or chipping away, and I feel like I have a better presentation of it. But I don't think I ever was as willing, I think, to speak it before. Like before, it's like if you're gonna, in church, you get voluntold.
Yeah, of course.
Plenty of stuff. Like day of. Churches we grew up in, it's like it's youth day. Guess what? You're doing the welcome. And you might find that out as you're doing the welcome. Like, we put you on a program, you're gonna go up and do this, or somebody else wants to hear. Go ahead, because you got personality or whatever, or whatever it is, they see stuff in you and they're pushing you out to see, to try to get you to grow. So that's where you kind of, churches where I got a lot of early stage time and stuff that kind of translate into other spaces. And it's like, that's the most nervous because it's your friends, it's your family, it's church. Like, so it's all of that pressure that I think that kind of helped for sure grow me into that space for sure.
Yeah, I was. It's interesting where you talk about like you're prepping now for like certain things, but then in other areas like you can like your memory has always just kind of served you, and I think a lot of times like that prep work. So for me, I play the keyboard, not as good as Quentin, nowhere near as good as Quentin. I can get by though on a Sunday morning.
Self-taught, an incredible self-taught musician. Self-taught. There's nothing John Dale can't do, and keyboard did express that again.
Well, luckily, I love having the ability to ask you because I used to run a lot of questions by you.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, for me, like, I'm prepping heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy. And this is, like, while I was learning, and, like, I'll call you or whatever, and he was like, oh, I'll ask you, like, oh, what songs you playing on this Sunday? He was like, oh, they just sent them over to me. I'm like, wait. I was like, bro, it's Saturday night. So you playing at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And he was like, yeah, they just sent them over to me. I'm going to listen to them in the car on the way there. And I'm like, man, must be nice. Must be nice. But like for me, I'm going to know what songs I'm playing a week in advance.
Yeah.
And I'm about to stress myself practicing every day. Because like, and then the key thing is like I'll have all these notes and stuff. And this also translates into like with speaking. I'll have all these notes that I want to get to and say in X, Y, and Z, have everything outlined. And like I'll rehearse it over and over. But then when I get up there to do stuff, it's now the memory has kind of like kicked in.
Okay.
But I think it's part of the process is like for me, and I'll have to talk to my therapist about this. I feel like I have to stress myself. I need that stress, that internal pressure just kind of put on me to make sure that I don't get kind of lackadaisical in it because I have the tendency to do that.
I think we all kind of have that self-drive. So this is a question I was kind of thinking on, and this is, I think, a good way to segue into that, is that I don't think imposter syndrome is always necessarily bad because it definitely has helped me drive myself to be, like you said, prepared or to lean on my memory or to know that, like, at some point, you got in that room for a reason. You got to trust who you are. Yeah. Be authentically yourself. Like, you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong or somewhere in between. And like you said, going in there with the being open to learn, like, I've learned also that, like, I'm in that space and I have a perspective. Like I do have a voice. So even sometimes it's gonna be received, sometimes it's not. But like I should at least offer that, you know, and try to be, you know, productive in that space. And I use that for self-driving. So I definitely I'm the same way where with some stress or some level of, that's why I used to be super last minute, because now I can't put it off no more. Yeah. I gotta do it. I gotta do it the best way. Now I feel like I can pull on those, you know, tactics with the pressure on, like I gotta deliver. And you love doing that, and you can fall in love with that too. And that is not the way to go. Yeah, it's very slippery slow. Much. And that's the thing you get away with is so much. Like with the songs, man, there's so many times where you just have experience. I've experienced so many times people sending music and I spend hours and hours with it to get there, and they be like, oh, somebody's not here, so we doing something different. And that just is the Black church experience. Is like anything goes at any time, in any key. Like, sometimes it's several keys. It is like, this is kind of where imposter syndrome or whatever, the failures being kind of baked in allowed me to relax a little bit.
Okay.
Because sometimes no matter how much I prep, somebody just coming with something out the blue. Somebody mama or somebody gonna start singing something that I ain't rehearsed or don't know, never heard, or they made up. Like people get up in church and just make up songs, just start singing. Like it happens. Like it is just like in that moment, what do? Do I not play? Like if I don't play, people are thinking, can he not play?
Yeah.
If I play it, I'm sounding terrible behind him. They might say the singer is terrible. They might say the musician is terrible. It's like there's all of these factors that I can't control. And that if I let it get in my head, I already lost. I might likely lose anyway, but my best chance is staying calm and just like let it be what it's gonna be. You know, prepping for the stuff I can prep for, spending more time with it, so I have like, you know, purpose to spend more time with music. That does not always happen, but it also has helped. And just letting go of that you ain't gonna be perfect.
And to just kind of put this on like the gender, like as men, and then more specifically as Black men, do you think that there is that added pressure to not make those mistakes?
I think I used to receive that. Okay. I think I held that really tight in my 20s. I feel like in my 20s, that was very much the most imposter syndrome ever, because you feel like you just starting to be up. Everybody's questioning everything you do. You don't do things like the people in their 30s and 40s. So those who are your mentors or people who are just you know, in an authoritative position can tend to discourage like the way that you want to operate or the way that you're trying to operate. Because we are in a space of sometimes arrogance. Sometimes I haven't seen it. I have a fresh face. I have a fresh perspective on it. And so you've been doing it for however many years your way and you feel like that's the way to go. I am very different in the way I approach everything. Yeah. So like when I come to a space, I'm literally I'm not going to be the first to talk. I'm going to sit there and listen. I'm watching and be like, ooh, I see how I could affect this space. And then normally I'm trying to, however much space is allotted to me, I typically want to do it in a way that makes sense to me because I want to succeed. So I'm like, hey, this is how I could succeed at this. And a lot of times that's met with challenge because people are like, this is the way it's done. Yeah. And I'm like, I see how that could be more efficient. And it is. There's been times where that's been really successful. There's times that's been really bad. And on both ends, there's times where people have allowed me to do it my way, and then I fall flat on my face. I have to admit that, yeah, your way was a little more efficient. And there are ways where I've tried it their way, and I'm like, again, we both see that, yeah, this isn't efficient for me. So I feel like there's always like a balance in that.
And I'm just kind of really thinking in real time. And that's why, like, even though both of us go to therapy, even some of these conversations tend to be a lot more therapeutic for me as well. Yeah. Because it does cause me to kind of sit back and reflect. So I'm thinking about, like, some of the added pressures that I put on myself and, like, what really kind of contributed to that imposter syndrome as well. I think going back to us being really young, even in the gifted program in middle school, and you all the way in, like, in elementary school, we're always just very few people of color, And when I first started teaching, I'm trying to think. I think I might have been the only Black instructor. Yeah. In the not in the whole College of Business, because so in the College of Business we had management, marketing, economics, and accounting. And I know I was the only black instructor in all 4 of those subjects. And then we had in the building, there was also LEJA, which I believe there were 2 black instructors there, and 1 in the health sciences. So for most of my students that came to the class, if they're getting their business major, I'm the only black instructor they're going to see.
Yeah, period.
Their 4 years there.
Yeah.
In terms of like, at least in the business field. And I think understanding that also put like a little bit more pressure on me, because you're afraid of like the generalizations, or you're afraid to use slang or share too much of like your personality because of how it might come across. So, you know, I'm just thinking about that like in real time as we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, like sometimes like your race and your identity, all that stuff kind of gets put on Front Street, and that might contribute a little bit to these added pressures, these added weights that you're putting around that nobody, well, I won't say nobody else is thinking about it, because I mean,
yeah, we know that there are real, that does exist to some level.
Yeah.
And I always, again, try to use as much sense as possible, because you do have to go into, you know, there are times and places and, you know, different wardrobe choices, different verbiage choices, all those things are real. We know that that's real. We've all learned that light switch, if nothing else. But I think being able to be authentic from that space is the key. So because I changed the verbiage, don't mean I'm changing me. Like, you know, everything ain't for everybody. Every piece of me isn't not necessarily for everybody. So I feel like learning to still be myself in those spaces, definitely being authentic in those spaces is, I think that's what I'm the most proud of at this part of the journey, is that I'm gonna be me. Yep. And good, bad, or indifferent, like I'm okay with that. And I'm okay. I think that's the other part of imposter syndrome, is you let go of, you're in the room for a reason, and if a room you're not supposed to be in, you won't fit in it.
Yeah.
And it's so accepting that too, that like when I don't fit in the room, there has to be lines where I'm not crossing certain lines to fit in the room. And so that helps me also mitigate that imposter syndrome, because certain rooms I just won't fit in.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be me, and me in that room doesn't fit. And so it's also that level of, before, if there was a reason to be in that room, or if there was something I was chasing that was in that room, there's times where I would try to make myself fit into the mode to be in that room. And I feel like it's just now in the last few years where like, I think what I value the most now is time, and not being arrogant with that time to say that, well, I can waste my time in this room, and if I feel like, if I find out, you know, at some point that it don't fit for me, I can spend a little more time trying to fit into it and then let it go. But it's like, no, recognizing sometimes before you even get into that room, that the cost of getting in at all, too much. Pass on it. There's some rooms that they'll offer you to get into, and then you got to check out what it costs to get in there. Because if you don't, you get into some rooms and like the reward is high enough to make you want to fit in. Like, a lot of people don't ever intend on change. You never go into I don't think anybody goes into a situation like, I'm going to fit into this, I'm going to go in here and fully change. But you get in there and you like, the reward is worth like a little bit of bending at first and a little more. And then, you know, you look up and
Do you feel like that's something that you chase a little bit more at a younger age? Because I feel like you were mentioning, like in our 20s, you're super ambitious. Like you feel like you got your whole life in front of you, so time.
So for me, it was no and then yes. Okay. So early on, teenage me is full of confidence, like blind confidence. So I walk in a room, it don't fit me, goodbye. I'm on to the next room, because there's 1,000 rooms and I can fit in any one of them. And then, you know, graduate high school, you had a plan for yourself, and then as you start to close, or, you know, your decisions before start to close certain doors, so now I can't get into certain doors, you like, oh, my options is getting more limited, and so you feel like I do have to pick from these options, and you feel like, okay, I need to fit into one of these rooms because I'm an adult now, I got to start making some money, I got to start, you know, making decisions, and I feel like the pressures of mid-20s, I think mid to late 20s is when I did the most trying to fit in, the most imposter syndrome, because as an early teen, you confident and cocky, and then life humbles you. Yeah. And then you try to lock in, because you're like, okay, well, these original big super aspirations seem like they way far away. Let me kind of bring it down some and get into reality of what's going on. And then that is a battle of putting away some of the ambitions, or do I pack that away? Do I put it away entirely? Basketball, you get to your mid-20s, brother, you ain't. You might be still good, but somebody is 3-4 years younger than you, and they are just as good as you, and they're 3 or 4 years younger than you. And so it don't even matter. I could have a way better workout than them, but like the numbers or what they've done, their choices they made were better. So like, do I put basketball away entirely? I still love basketball. Like in my early 20s, I still play probably 5-6 times a week. Like sometimes not going to something I needed to go to because I wanted to play basketball, but then basketball isn't producing any money. So you got a family to raise. Like, how much of that time do you get to spend on that? Like it's about, you know, what has to get accomplished now. Like you're talking about it being a man, being a black man. Both of us started families early, so being the head of a family, like understanding responsibilities and then like balance. In your early 20s, balance don't mean nothing.
Not at all.
So it's all gas. You know, what breaks? What's a break? I ain't never had a break before. What I need that for?
Man, that's interesting. I was just kind of curious, and like with identity and how your identity just changes over time as well. Yeah, and then the things that were super important to you at one point in time, or how people perceived you and things like that, like over time it just dissipates. Yeah.
I think for me, one of the biggest things I took away from therapy, so one of my biggest toolkits is the example of my time and energy budget. So the way people look at budgeting money is the way I typically look at budgeting my energy, basically. Where I'm putting my energy, where I'm putting my time. Like, I only have so much of it. So that's the thing you learn early in the 30s. As you start to get tired, you start to, the hours seem longer. Now my kids are older, so they have schedules. There just is only so many hours. And so being wasteful with that is just, at some point, if you're really trying to succeed on your goals, you gotta lock in. So like, you just literally stop having time for things that are not productive. And you still have your hobbies, you still have your downtime. We all doom scroll. Most of us, some of us I guess don't, but I do. I'm a regular person. I'm definitely. But now I schedule that sometimes. There's times where I will put my phone on D&D for a long time, or I set it down, or I'm away from it. And I manage that. I manage, you know, when I'm playing basketball. Like, now I've got myself back into where I can get some workout spaces, you know, and do stuff like that. And so it is managing all of that stuff, because you only have so much time. If you're gonna be successful, you're gonna have to have some level of discipline and some balance and some structure.
Do you think that imposter syndrome goes away? Like, do you think like you'll ever get to a point where like you just never feel it? Or do you think that it's always going to be something tied to some of these new experiences?
Yeah, I think that's always, because you never stop moving. Yeah. I feel like it's always, like we talked about the levels. So with a new level, it's not the last level. So like, you got solid on that level, and then something's going to move. So you got to adjust to that level. So I feel like it's always going to be something that challenges you. That goes back to that human experience. Yeah. Like, you're never going to obtain all the knowledge. You're never going to be fully secure. Because if you are, like, a lot of times, that's when you get blind. When you if you feel like you're not moving, or you're not growing, or I got this in, you know, locked down or whatever, that's when you get blindsided the most. It's like when you feel like the things are stopping. So like, I feel like that doesn't ever go away. And again, I think it's about, we talked about managing and keeping that like in a healthy space.
And see, that's why I love how you kind of put that positive spin on it. You know, with, it's not all bad, right? Yeah. It can be bad if it becomes like debilitating to you to the point where you can't function. But then it also helps you to, I think, recognize the gravity of the moment too, and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing to stay in that room, and not become, you know, complacent. So I like that positive spin. So I wonder if there is like
if there's a different term for it.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I know for me, I've experienced that with coaching lately. I've been going back. I'm going back into coaching, but it was a different coaching style. Like before, it was more of a head coach is making most of the decisions. Where like I came to this situation, and it's very much, it's a team situation. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's doing a task. Everybody's crossing over. It's just like really, it was really a team effort. And right away, I'm like, everybody's in my space, so I can't like say what I need to say. And it's like, no, you just gotta be you, like in the moment. And you gotta like, for me, it was like getting my feet set, and then everybody was doing stuff for me, and it was like, well, if I can't do that if you're doing it for me, and it's like, no, we're doing that until you take it. Like when you take it out of my hands, you can have it. And so as I found my footing as a coach, they absolutely found spaces where they allowed me to just operate, and also. It was once I started operating in my spaces, they allowed me to because I was operating there. But they absolutely held space for me, but then also pushed on me a little bit to be like, hey, if you're not going to do this, we are. But like, hey, this is what you should be doing. Like, I know it's new, but take your time to get your feet in. But like, this is the way it's going to be done. And that just has helped me find that voice. And it's definitely translating in other spaces. And so I feel like it's definitely important to the people you have around you,
man, for sure,
keeping the people in close and having the right people in your ear, because imposter syndrome leads to you want to be you, but you also want to be comfortable doing that and feel supported doing that. And so it's important the spaces that you're in, or that you know how to kind of insulate that while you're molding to that space too.
Yeah,
because it is hard not to be influenced by the spaces you're in.
Oh, for sure. And I think as you're saying that's why once again I just want to really shout out all the people that was around me like early in my career that kind of helped me to get out of that mode. And that was all of my colleagues, Dr. Field, Dr. Lynn, Professor Dooley. Like I remember all of them just kind of like helping to kind of shape me at that very vulnerable and pliable time, as I'm starting that career. But then I eventually did get to a place where it's like I stopped trying to prove that I belong and started acting like I belonged there.
Yeah.
And then that's where, like you said, you can really become yourself. And I feel like when you're able to kind of let go of all that extra weight, man, like the sky is really the limit.
Yeah.
And like I'd be joking around now because like how I was 10 years ago, I used to do like heavy prepping before class. Man, I don't know if I should say this on the air, but like you get to a point where, all right, what's my topic for today? All right. And I just look at that 10, 15 minutes before class, and then you can just kind of go. And I found that in the classroom, that's where I've been getting some of my best experiences is when things aren't really planned.
Yeah.
And like, I've done the work, like I know my material, so it's not like I'm showing up like, oh man, what am I supposed to be talking about? But like not over stressing to the point where, you're trying to think of every curveball that could be thrown. And then just being okay with like, and this is something I learned earlier on, like, if I don't know the answer, hey, I don't know, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
I'll tell my students now, like, man, that's interesting. I'm going to do my homework and have an answer by the next class period. So once again, going back to, like I said, the tool that I had was just like, always be willing to grow and give yourself space to kind of learn.
Yeah, and I think that too also allows what I'm sure that people are experiencing with us is like that disarms.
Oh, for sure.
Because people are like, this is the teacher. He's supposed to be the person that knows it all. And if he is given space to say, hey, I don't know this, I'll look it up.
Gosh, yes.
Yeah, just that brings a level of realness. And I feel like that's definitely what both of us bring to that experience in just having experiences with other people is being able to be real, like being real, being approachable, I'm not this perfect person. Like I'm gonna show you at times, let you see the flaws, because I'm not about being here and being this perfect product, but we are being here, being real. Yes, like you said, you study, you know your material, so it's not that you don't know the material, but the material's too broad. Like you have a lot of more respect for economy than that. Like you already know, like what your space is like. There's so much knowledge on so many things, and like, yes, you study everything, but you still can learn, and that allows them also to, come in and learn and to be more real with you to bring more questions. Like, I know I can bring a question to him because he's going to be real about it. He ain't going to shut me down, or he ain't going to give me a BS answer. If he don't know, he going to give me the real answer. And so that just definitely builds that trust and that bond, I think, that just helps push that and go farther.
1,000%. And I think you had mentioned this before on our other podcast, Lyrically Inclined, in case you...
Yes, check it out.
go check that one out too. But like you had mentioned it before, it was like, one of the things that you do is you share your pitfalls or your failures. You was like, man, so... Because I remember what space you were in, like you guys were... There are people that were presenting, and they would talk about like this is the route that I took. And then you was like, this is the route that I took. And like, these are the pitfalls that I made. I want you to circumvent those things. And I think, man, that authenticity just like speaks volumes, especially like for younger folks. Because yeah, if I get in, like if I'm a student and I'm in a class where like this person just seems like they know absolutely everything, I'm going to be intimidated to ask them questions just because I'm like, man, I don't want my questions to sound dumb.
Exactly.
But like for somebody who's sharing like their life experiences, and I'm once again just kind of looking at this as like a mentor, like, man, like for you, you talk about like all these different areas of life that, not saying like you failed in, but like you talk about like, man, I wish I would have known this, or this was my train of thoughts that I had at that time, but like I should have did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I feel like, man, you learn a lot more from making mistakes than you do from getting it right the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get it right, you get a false sense of confidence, man. Then you get to a bigger choice and feel like, yeah, I know this, and nah, you just don't sometimes.
Yeah.
And even if you do, what it does is, and this is where I feel like imposter syndrome can be positive, is it just makes you question it just enough. You don't need to question it enough to like lose all the sense of what you got, but you need to question it enough because you should be sure enough that info. And that's what I tell people all the time, like take what I'm saying and just know that you should be making these decisions informed. So like get the info. Like I was always about getting info. Like I used to ignore it sometimes. I was always about getting information. Like you got to get the info. So it's about, like you said, circumventing what you can. Like hear me out when I say this. I promise you, you will be on the other side. Is like, Q, I remember when you said, like you got two choices. I remember when you said and I avoided it. I remember what you said and I went through it. I already went through it. You don't have to. You could choose to, but you don't have to.
That's real.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to stop, man. Like this has been a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's something that a lot of people deal with,
Yeah.
whether they know how to place a name to it or not, or the intricacies, you know. But I think this is like a real life experience. And shout out to therapy for me, like early on, helping me to kind of cope with it at the time. And then therapy as I, kept going to really try to get rid of it, right? Because I think you want to get stuff off you that don't need to be on you.
Yeah, for sure.
So once again, attribute that to like therapy, and then just also like you said, I think the most important thing is like the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm with you and the rest of the guys, like man, like I'm 100% comfortable in the skin that I'm in.
Yeah.
But it's out there in the world sometimes.
It's tough. Yeah, it could be tough for sure.
Yeah. So any last minute things that you want to add to it?
I don't think so.
All right. Say less.
Yeah.
So make sure to like and subscribe.
Yes, sir.
Hit us with some comments, or like if there's things that you guys have been experiencing or your thoughts on imposter syndrome. I love what Quinn was saying about the positive spin on it. Like it just needs a rebrand.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm sure there is something out there. That's one of our
another few episodes we're gonna find out.
We're gonna do our homework.
Exactly. Find out a good phrasing for that. Yeah.
Man, so thank y'all for checking us out and check in and lock in with us.